Test. Test. Testing the stream. Testing the stream. 1, 2, 1, 2. Final audio check. Board meeting, final audio check.
Isn't it great? It's rather disorienting. I'm sorry? Well, they moved all the books to the sides and then opened up this middle space and put down a new floor so that it makes the room more sort of functional. Yes, absolutely.
Check.
I brought my agenda from curriculum committee with me. Okay, I think we're all here. Okay, Gab's on the wrong side. The board met tonight in executive session. We're now ready to continue with the public portion of the meeting. We did not have any public correspondence since our last meeting at the end of July. The president's report, it has, welcome back, everybody. It seems like forever ago that we were here at the end of July, but it's not in fact the case. A few things have happened at the state level. All of you know that our students will be either are or will be taking the Start Strong evaluation. The window, in response to some concerns from all the education organizations, the window for administration was extended from September 30th to October 21st. Unfortunately, that extension came after most school districts had done their planning for Start Strong, but it nonetheless was an acknowledgement from the department that the administration window was probably a little short and a little early. All of you know the governor halted mandatory COVID testing for unvaccinated school employees by executive order. And the teacher shortage, which we are all feeling in New Jersey, is also happening on a national level, so much so that the White House convened a very large conference on it. One of the takeaways from that was a push for apprenticeships for teacher candidates. And you know, the teacher candidates do student teaching for a year. An apprenticeship would, I think, incorporate that, but the teaching candidates would be paid theoretically and guaranteed a job at the end of the process, again, theoretically. So that's that was the takeaway from the White House conference on the teacher shortages. The fact is that states are addressing this. Pennsylvania just put out a comprehensive plan that includes a whole strategy for addressing the teacher shortages in Pennsylvania. We do not have a comprehensive plan like that yet in New Jersey, but it's possible that this Department of Education is working on it. And I think the State Board of Education is right now considering some changes to the administrative code, which they do on a regular basis, and some of those changes might affect barriers to entry to the profession, lower barriers to entry to the profession. There are some things that the State Board of Education can do in that way. There's some things that have to happen legislatively, but there is a focus right now on expanding the candidate pool and diversifying that candidate pool because all districts across the state are having trouble not just attracting teachers, but paraprofessionals, bus drivers, custodians, just about every category. I was driving back up from Pennsylvania this weekend, and I saw repeatedly billboards that said, do you want to be a bus driver? Recruiting bus drivers for the city of Philadelphia, for New Jersey towns, it is something that's happening all over and being addressed at all different levels. And with that, that is the end of the President's report. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. I'm just going to start off with some quick reviews. Yesterday was our first day of school. I think it went very well for the most part. You know, besides having the rain that we didn't have all summer, decided to rain on the first day. But I am pleased that day 2 we were in school, and tomorrow we will be in school, unlike last year when we had to use emergency days for the Tropical Storm Ida. We did have a little issue at the high school late in the afternoon, one of our faulty head sensor that set off the alarm, but we got in our first fire drill of the year on the first day of school, so we were able to work with that. During the summer, you know, I was happy that I wasn't getting weekly memos from the Department of Health or the Department of Education and we were able to focus on our buildings, our personnel, and our programs going into this school year. And this is the first time in a couple years I felt very excited about the start of the school year, that we have a lot to accomplish this school year, and our focus will be on our students and our programs and instruction. I do want to give a thank you to our 12-month staff who have to be here all summer for preparing for the opening of schools. Includes our secretaries, our administrators, our central office, and of course our custodians who do an amazing job of getting these buildings clean and up and ready and operating for the start of the year. And I want to thank the teachers and the support staff for just making the first day a positive day. I know for some kids it's a little, there might be a little bit of anxiety, especially for the younger ones who are not used to being away from mom and dad. They make sure it's a positive experience for them. You know, I'm always going down to the primary schools during that first day, and there's always a few criers. But by the end of the day, they're all having fun in their classrooms and they're making new friends, which is terrific to see. We do have a number of new staff members for the school, this coming school year. And again, Betsy mentioned about the shortage of teachers, and we really had to put in a lot of time to find quality candidates to come in and fill our openings. We did have a few summer resignations, but we were able to fill almost all our positions. We have one opening still that we have to fill, but we're able to cover those classes with our staff. I'm happy to say that when our staff, out of our certified staff, over 35% of them come from a diverse background. So we're increasing our diversity within our staff, which has been a goal of this board for the last few years. We do have, I want to point out, a new director of building and grounds, and that is Robert Gomes. And we also have a new position, supervisor of intervention programs, and that's Gabrielle Marks. Those two individuals will have a chance to have a big impact on our district. Always like to mention our facilities. Over the summer, it really gives us a chance to have a deep cleaning, get those floors stripped and waxed. If we have opportunities, we'll paint some of the classrooms and hallways, just to make it look warm and inviting to our students and staff. Over the last few years, we've really been stuck in these large projects, whether it was bathroom renovations, HVAC, opening a central school. So we had a lot of projects, and this summer we didn't have those major projects hanging over our heads, but we were still able to accomplish some of the smaller projects. Behind me you'll see two projects. The Forest Avenue School main office got a little facelift, and it looks terrific, and it was much needed. It was a crowded space. We took some things out of the little walkway, opened it up a little bit, and rearranged some furniture with new furniture and painted and new flooring, and it just looks like a much more inviting and effective use of the space. We also have the art room at Linden Avenue to need some TLC, and it certainly got that. The new flooring there is just perfect for an art room, so I'm very happy about that. I don't want the other schools to feel left out. We are at Central School working on getting a shade structure in where the permits, we're just waiting for the permits to be issued, and we'll start the shade structure. And at Ridgewood Avenue School, we are going to be replacing the roof over the lower gym. Every so often we'll have a leak if it rains just the right way. And at the high school, we did, you guys all can see this because you're in the space now, but the media center, we rearranged in here and we put in a new flooring. It just has opened this space up and will allow us to use it for a variety of activities in the high school. So I know Mr. Lawler's very excited about that. Always at this first meeting, I'd like to look at our enrollment numbers. Our elementary levels are pretty consistent. We do have a higher number of students enrolled in pre-K this year, so we opened up another section. We do have an unusually small kindergarten grade level, and typically we're about 100 to 110 around January, but we usually get a lot of summer registers. and that did not happen this year. So our kindergarten numbers are low, and we'll continue to watch that to see if that's a trend or it just happens to be an outlier. And at our high school level, our numbers are pretty consistent across the board. We did see a little bit of drop with the 10th graders, and we're looking into that right now. We want to make sure that number's accurate. Typically, we don't see, last year, the 9th grader was at 130, now it's down to 119. And typically, we don't see that type of drop in the numbers from 9th to 10th, so we want to take a look at that. As we look into this year, the district is really going to be focusing, at least from my point of view, focusing on these topics. Elementary literacy has been a topic that we've been discussing for a while. This year we are bringing Hagerty for a program, which is a literacy program for the pre-K and kindergarten. We will have a Phonics First program we're introducing to first, second, and third graders. Our literacy consultant will continue to work with the Ridgewood Avenue staff, and we're looking to expand our Orton Gillingham services to our students. This summer we had a summer OG program, and we're looking to expand those services to an after-school program that we're going to introduce later in the school year. Intervention programs, we're looking to improve our services, and that includes our IRS program, our 504s, our in-class supports, academic development, individual education plans, our co-teaching models, and this all goes back to us dedicating time and staff to these programs. As I mentioned, we do have a new supervisor to look over these programs, but we also hired support staff in an additional BCBA. We have a grant for a third BCBA that will be working in all the buildings and working with staff. We hired a part-time OT to help relieve some of the caseload of our full-time OT. So we're doing things to make sure that what we're doing for our students is the best possible. And again, that takes a lot of time, but more importantly, it takes personnel, and we're fortunate to build that into our budget for this school year. DEI will continue to be a focus for the district. We will continue to have training opportunities for administrations and teachers, offering student programs, much like we did last year, and we'll make sure that there's integration into the classroom lessons on this topic. School safety, we spent a lot of time several years ago really addressing school safety, and we want to make sure that we're continuing to address that. We are working with our consultant, the Stonegate Associates. They are reviewing our safety plan, helping us redefine some of our, some procedures in that plan. We have a very good working relationship with the police. I've met with them a few times over the summer. You know, some of them that we've asked from them is just make sure that they're more visible when there are school activities going on, whether they're night functions, when there's drop-offs, pickups that are happening at the school in the mornings and the afternoons. You know, when recess, if cars are patrolling and they don't have a call, if they could just make sure that they're around the schools, it would be much appreciated, and they were very accommodating to that request. We will continue to find ways to train our staff. We make sure this is a point of attention to our new staff. Later on in the school year, we'll bring in the Department of School Preparedness and Emergency Planning to train our staff on the topic. We will, last spring, we finished our strategic planning, so we'll start focusing on implementing the recommendations from strategic planning. I believe next meeting, that will be one of our focuses at the Board of Ed meeting. And overall, just our learning environment. We've spent the last 2.5 years being in a situation with a pandemic where a lot of procedures and opportunities for the students weren't available. We want to make sure that the students feel comfortable, welcomed, and just create a learning environment that they can be successful in. And you know, we're going to look at our physical settings, such as the media center in the high school, where we've had an opportunity to make improvements in here to make this more welcoming and to find different ways we can utilize it. And that includes not only our indoor spaces, but our outdoor spaces, how we can better utilize them. And I think that's something that we looked at through the pandemic that just having opportunities for our students to get outside a little bit more, whether it's making use of their learning gardens at the elementary schools or having lunch for grade level outside more frequently, we think that will be very beneficial. And I know the home and schools have been terrific with the classroom furniture at Linden and Forest, so all the classrooms are slowly getting their furniture replaced, and you know, that modern look and the comfortable seating does make a difference just in the students' attitude and approach as they come into the classroom. And we, as far as the social emotional component, we still have some funds available through the ARP grant that we have counselors available. And again, we've increased our related services in the building, so that should trickle down to the entire school population. So we're excited about that. So we have a lot of positive things that are going on in the building at the start of the school year, and we're looking forward to continue to develop and evolve some of the programs that we have in place.
Thanks, Dirk. Before we go on to the board self-evaluation, board members, any questions or comments for Dirk? Okay. The board self-evaluation, every year the Board of Education does 2 evaluations. We are mandated to evaluate the superintendent. That is the only employee of the district that the board has the authority to evaluate. That has been done and was reviewed this evening in exec session because it is a personnel matter. And then every year the board evaluates itself. We take our goals and look at them and see, you know, in constructive ways how we can do better. And I thought, board members, in looking at my notes, the self-eval has 2 big categories. There are a lot of small specific ones, but there are the 3 major challenges, and then there are the additional focus and training needed. And I thought maybe it would be productive to go through those, and then you can add in any questions or comments. And also, our colleague Duval did a great summary of the takeaways, so we can go through that as well. So with your approval and agreement, we'll start on the 3 major challenges. So each of us named 3 major challenges, and there were some common themes in those, which I collapsed into, you know, just a few, not 3 for each of us, because that would be 27, and that's not good. So here they are, the 3 major challenges. Ensuring equity in student achievement. Teachers need to recognize the differing learning styles to give students the opportunity to be recommended for and take advanced classes. Again, these are challenges that involve board oversight, but also other aspects of what we do in the schools. Ensuring that the school community, students, teachers, and administrators have ongoing access to social and emotional care in a non-stigmatized way. Major challenge that we've all discussed, teacher shortages, lack of diverse candidates for teaching, and I would add other positions. Budget constraints, which is an evergreen challenge, major challenge for us as always. A perceived culture of intolerance or need for further character development to make sure that all of our students recognize that biased behavior is hurtful and unacceptable and will not be tolerated anywhere. And particularly our students of color need to be seen, valued, and welcomed in our district. Resistance to change and adherence to traditions. We need to be proactive about adopting new ideas instead of relying on what's always been done. Addressing the ongoing impact of the COVID pandemic on student achievement. Surviving in the current climate, which is rife with divisiveness. Keeping our education focused despite almost daily distractions. Balancing academic needs. There was a concern that students at the highest levels and the middle and in the middle are not engaged and inspired. The individual who identified this as a need feels that sports are in place for challenged students, but perhaps we need to pay more attention to high levels G&T students and students in the middle. The continuing challenge of special education, which a lot of the challenges were identified in the special education audit. Additional programming for students, training for inclusion teachers, and a cultural shift that recognizes the positive traits of special education students. Again, working on the effects of the pandemic, including poor study skills, immaturity, and anxiety. We, the board, need to continue our efforts to support students and train them to be students again. Those were the major concerns. Now, would you like to add in, board members? I keep looking down at David Campbell, and he's not down there, so I'll just look at you.
I just wanted to add, actually, is this on? There we go. Something that I noticed in our self-evaluation was just creating the space and the time for our group to discuss and review new projects or programming. Strategic planning is one area I think we'd like a little deeper dive in for those of us on the board who were not involved. And you know, a little more education for those of us who are maybe not on like a curriculum committee or the finance committee, so that all of our committees, all the good work that's being done in our committees is communicated to the rest of the board, maybe in a bit more of a robust way. And I know we've talked about this before, but if you're not on a committee, you don't necessarily know the details of what's going on, even though we just haven't had we don't have time. Our executive session is usually pretty full of other topics. Then a few other things that I just noticed is there's several comments about well, I just said internal communications, but also external communications and involvement with the community, as far as always, you know, looking for new ways to improve our relationship with the community and to communicate better with the community as well as always. And to that point, looking for, this came up twice, was looking for input from a wider variety of stakeholders in the community. So when we are outsourcing for feedback and looking for new ideas, there may be some members of our community that we don't speak to enough, like perhaps the parents of younger children as opposed to the parents of older students who have been around for a lot longer and maybe are more familiar, whereas the parents of younger students may have some new or interesting or innovative ideas we haven't, you know, really had a chance to think about. And that's everything else we've pretty much covered.
Other comments?
I just add one thing. So there was recently some big news reporting about the overall test scores nationally, and how there's been a significant decrease based on significant skills during the COVID period, and the big educational disruption. I think we just need to remain laser focused for each age group to, you know, make sure that we're monitoring that. I mean, it was really eye-opening, the deficits that you're seeing in students. So I just think we need to be, you know, we've so far thought things are going pretty well, but we just need to stay really focused on it. We don't know what skills and things that we thought the kids were learning at different ages have stuck as well as the normal drills. I think we need to really pay attention.
For those of you who aren't familiar with what Mike is alluding to, the National Center for Education Statistics every other year issues they call it the Nation's Report Card, based on the NAEP scores, National Assessment of Educational Progress. And they measure reading and math at various levels, and there were huge drops especially among 9-year-olds. Biggest drop in math that they'd seen since they've been keeping track, and a significant drop in reading scores. Now, the NAEP is given to a cross-section of students across the country. It's not given to all of our students, but it represents a sort of a cross-sectional view of the whole country, and in this particular reporting really puts some hard statistics on delayed learning of students. So it's certainly something we have to attend to here and everywhere. Duval, you did much of your notes. You know, clarifying the role of board members, we've talked about a lot, because there are many things that board members don't do. We don't hire and fire employees, except for the superintendent. we don't write curriculum, but there are so many things that we do that are important things in our oversight function. It's always good to review our responsibilities and be reminded of them. Let's see, you covered most of your notes. One of the things that was a theme is that the situation with harassment, intimidation, and bullying is a constantly evolving situation, and that we feel like collectively we need ongoing training in that, so we understand it properly when things happen. And just improving school climate overall, which we've mentioned, particularly with regard to bias and diversity. I think that covers your notes, Duval, and my notes. Do any of the rest of you have any other comments?
Just in two areas, when I was looking over the evaluation, so every board member submitted scored results of like, oh, I think we're a 5 on this or a 1 on that, and so when I was looking at the results, I looked for areas where there was a spread. So there seems to be disagreement amongst board members on how we're doing, or a sense that a number of us think we could be doing better in a certain area. And community relations was one area where we self-identified an area for growth. And I think something as a board, and we're going to be talking about at our next meeting, what we can do. We often say we're a small district, and so what can we do, because our resources are so limited, and I think we might want to reframe that as to, what are the small steps that we can do that can incrementally move us closer to where we'd like to be in terms of having the community relations that we aspire to as a community. And then Betsy, just to sort of follow up on your question about the scope of the board work, again, in the comments, there was a whole section around board staff relations, which a lot of the comments were like, well, as board members, we don't do this, and yet the evaluation tool asked, how as board members are we aware of how actions and decisions are communicated to staff throughout the district? And I think just offering clarification on what we do see as a board might be helpful.
I think so, and it's something that we also, and I will make a note of myself, to talk to the people at school boards. Our evaluation tool is furnished by the School Boards Association, which is our trade association that also provides our training. And we've all noticed this over the years, that in the evaluation tool, there are categories that we don't really see. As board members, we see an overview of district operations. We certainly, by definition, don't interfere in the day-to-day running of the schools, but yet the instrument almost supposes sometimes that we do. So it's something that I will also send off an email to NJSBA about. Other comments? Anthony? No?
You pretty much covered everything I was thinking about. Specifically, because this has come up in my interactions with the public, what the board does and how come we do this and when we don't do it. It's not part of our scope or responsibility or our purview to even see some of the things I'm asked about. So I think spending some time on an explanation of what the board is and does, so that the public understands, the limits of the information we have and obviously can provide. And then the other thing, which I think both Michael and Duval and Betsy talked about, is how we get students to back to a level of performance that feels normal. Because I'm not sure for many kids they're quite there yet. I mean, I don't think for many parents we're quite there, because
we're kind of sitting back wondering, okay, fall is here. Is this going to get, are we going to have another wave of COVID? Or is something else going to come by that's going to disrupt education? And so being resilient in that way, I think, is something that needs to be focused on. Easier said than done, I'll say that. But
It all depends on whether it's locusts or river of blood that we get. I mean,
It's a work in progress. So many of the things that we're talking about tonight are works in progress. But the self-evaluation and our discussion next meeting about the strategic plan, which of course was a community planning effort, will help us come up with both district goals for the year, which we have to have, and board goals. And, reading the notes and going over the evaluations, I think some very prominent themes have come out. So I think the job of setting those goals this year will not be as hard. The job of discussing them thoroughly and internalizing them will be hard, but coming up with them, not as bad, I think. Any other comments before we move on? Okay. It is time now for public comment, the first public comment on agenda items only. For those of you who do not know our protocols, you have 2 minutes to speak. You come up to the lectern, sign in, identify yourself, and confirm your Glen Ridge residency, and if you're affiliated with a group, let us know about that. And for your questions or comments, if you have several, please state them all at once so we can take them on, hopefully in the order that you've given them. We don't necessarily have answers to everything, but we will do our best. Kristen, would you be my timer? And if you would just call time when it's 2 minutes. All right, anyone have any questions or comments for the board? Do you notice that nobody sits in the front row either? Okay. If there are none right now, there's also a public comment period at the end of the meeting on agenda or other items pertaining to the running of the schools. So we will continue now. Traditionally, the first meeting of the month, we do committee and liaison reports. Not all of us have met with our liaison assignments or our committees. Does anyone have anything that is timely?
I actually do.
Oh,
I
great.
asked, Forest Avenue School, Home and School Association, and I just have some dates to throw out. Their meeting is coming up on Friday. The 9th will be their back-to-school pizza party, and then their Home and School meeting will be next Tuesday, the 13th, and also next week, next Friday, will be a parent coffee social. And there's a save the date for October 13th for a parent social, adults only at Fitzgerald's.
Oh, okay.
What that means. And lastly, 3 fundraisers starting up: their mum sale, their book fair, and a wrapping paper sale. So if you're listening and watching, get ready. Here we go.
Oh, and something I should have, those dates, Duval, thank goodness you have a better grip on dates than I do. I should remind you that the Glen Ridge Diversity and Inclusion Association is having a picnic. And it will be on the Saturday, the 17th of September, from 1 to 3 in the Glen. I presume around where the bandstand is, I think. And I know this is the second annual one. First annual one was a huge success. The food was delicious. I encourage everybody to come down to the Glen for that.
It's the 17th, Saturday the 17th.
Saturday the 17th from 1 to 3. Okay, anyone else have something timely?
So the Ridgewood Avenue Home and School meeting, the first of the year, is happening this Friday at 8:45 in the morning in person. I believe it's at Ridgewood somewhere, but I don't know if it's in the cafeteria or in the courtyard, so just go to the school if you're interested. And also they're currently selling tickets for a casino night on September 30th, so coming soon. Tickets are $125 for dinner, dessert, drinks, and $100 of chips.
Yeah, it was children's night.
only children, of course. And Dr. Donovan's running the task.
Anyone else? Okay.
For Gaslamp, their productions for all ages are in full swing. Their kids are going to be performing 101 Dalmatians. Their juniors are going to be performing School of Rock. Their teens are doing Chicago, and the timely mention is that they are about to start audition signups for their community main stage, and their production this year will be Elf. So keep an eye out
Do
for
you have any
the.
dates on those?
I don't. That's all the information I have.
Right, we'll find out.
Report back. But that ELF will be open to children and adults in the community, not just limited to the school district. So we hope to see many local faces on stage.
Michael, do you want to say anything about negotiations and/or curriculum committee? I can help with curriculum committee.
Sure. So curriculum committee met last week. I had to leave early, but we talked about the curriculum reviews that we're doing this coming year, including mathematics and social studies. We talked about DEI, and we talked about the standardized testing results that we had so far, including primarily the AP tests, I think, that this time. I then left, so do you want to?
Okay, with regard to DEI, we talked about the arrangement we have with Montclair State University to provide focused and tailored DEI training. We went over the standardized test results from the AP exams, which you'll hear more about later in the fall. We talked a little bit about the NJSLA, which our students took last spring in May. We were starting to receive individual results on those. We also will receive school results, which will be disaggregated as well. We talked about the Start Strong assessment, which we've already discussed. The NJGPA, which is the graduation 11th grade exam graduation test, which for the juniors who took it last spring, it will be a field test rather than a graduation requirement. Moving forward, that will change, but that's the situation for the rising seniors now. We received a co-teaching grant from the New Jersey Inclusive Education Technical Assistance Group for special ed. We talked about literacy training, the Phonics First and the Haggerty program that you mentioned, and the Conquer Math that you also mentioned. So that was curriculum committee meeting, and yes?
So we have a further session with the teachers on the negotiation with the GREA this coming Monday night.
Yeah, Monday the 12th. We will be meeting again with the teachers union. Anyone else have anything that is timely for committee and liaison reports? Okay. Now in your package you have minutes from the meeting of July 25th, executive session and regular session. Does anyone have any changes to those minutes? Okay, if that is the case, Michael, would you move the minutes?
Sure, I'll move M1.
Okay, may I have a second?
Second.
Second from Anthony. Since there are no additions, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Mr. DeLue,
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb, Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill,
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn, Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Administrative, I'm sorry, was there a comment? Yeah. Just the mic, okay.
Oh, not Mike, me.
No, not yet.
Well, yeah, for a minute I thought it was Mike DeLue or, Anthony looked ready to say something, so I didn't want to deprive anyone of the opportunity. Okay, we have administrative items in your packets. Duval, would you move the administrative items?
Sure, I'll move A1 and A2.
Okay, I'm just checking the addenda quickly. There are no further administrative items on the addenda. May I have a second? Second from Jocelyn. Any discussion on these administrative items? which include second reading of new and/or revised policies and regs, I think all of which are revised to keep them in keeping with code, changes in code. Any discussion? Okay, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet?
Aye.
Mr. DeLue?
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb? Ms. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill? Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye. Motion carries. Anthony, would you move the personnel items?
I would move P1 through P11, including on the addendum P7, P13, P14, and P15.
Okay, thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
I'll give it to Kristen this time. Okay, in keeping with our rules, personnel items are discussed in exec session. So, board members, if there are no objections, I will have Barbara call the roll. Any objections? Okay, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet?
Aye.
Mr. DeLue?
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb? Ms. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill? Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Now we have a curriculum item. Michael, would you move the curriculum item?
I would say I was very excited, but it's the textbook disposal that was always sort of bittersweet for me, but I moved C1.
Okay, may I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, okay. Any discussion of the textbook disposal? All right, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet?
Aye.
Mr. DeLue?
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb? Ms. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill? Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we are moving on to the business items, and before we move on those, I would like to draw your attention to B5, donations. The Forest Avenue Home and School Association contributed a monetary donation for classroom furniture and materials in the amount of over $59,000. The Linden Avenue Home and School Association gave a monetary donation for Promethean boards and in the art room, for $5,700. The Linden Avenue Home and School Association gave a donation for classroom furniture for 2 kindergarten classrooms at more than $29,000. The Glen Educational Foundation revision of the mini grant award to Andrew Schoen for a vinyl cutter project was increased for a new total of over $2,100. So thank you to all of those generous donors. We live and die by our generous donors here. And now, who would like to move business items?
I'll do it.
Duval, would you do it?
B1 all the way through to B13.
Okay, may I have a second?
Second.
Second from Anthony. Okay, any discussion on any of the business items? Okay, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bonnet?
Aye.
Mr. DeLue?
Aye.
Ms. Gottlieb? Ms. Graham?
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill? Oh, yeah.
Do I? Oh, I beg your pardon. Yes, it's about me. I'm going to a workshop. Yes, abstain from B9. Thank you. Never had to do that
Thank you.
before.
Ms. O'Neill? Oh, and Ms. Ginsburg?
Abstain from B1 and B8, the rest aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now we've reached the second public comment period for questions or comments on items either on the agenda or pertaining to the running of the schools. The protocols are the same. Does anyone have a question or comment? Yes.
Okay, your 2 minutes are up.
Good evening, board members. I just wanted to rise. It's funny that you did the self-evaluations today, because among the things that I wanted to talk about was some of the good things that have happened, certainly after the special education audit, especially after the DII audit, that certainly these were very worthwhile exercises. And the fruits are beginning to show. The board-certified behavioral analysis, the part-time OT, replaced Orton and Gillingham so quickly when it took us so long to get an Orton Gillingham person, and then we were able to replace. I also see that there's more help in the child study team. And then an interesting position I hope we hear more about of kind of somebody on a grant who seems to be an omnibudsman going to the different areas. That certainly when we talk about inclusion, it's special education, and it's not only helping kids who are not performing so much as helping kids to perform as well as they can. And I think one of the secrets sometimes in Glen Ridge is that you can have a special education kid in an honors class, in an AP class. And I don't think people know that, so I really commend you. I know that Ms. Ginsburg will always say there's more work to be done, and I wholeheartedly agree, but it's nice to see it going in the right direction. I had also wanted to rise tonight to ask about HIB, which I thought myself had been a very controversial topic, and after 10 years of meetings, I still don't understand it. And I really would ask the board to help, and I say not only yourselves, but us parents, the community, to understand it. What are the penalties? What are the standards? What are the expectations? Why? Sometimes we feel, and this is a royal we, can't name everyone, we feel that, well, we can't talk about the kids for privacy is a smokescreen, and maybe it is, and maybe it isn't. But I think it's time in the community that we need to understand it better. And we also need to understand our public discourse better, where sometimes I wonder how the HIB principles would be applied to some other people. So I thank you all for your work on this, and I really encourage you to continue moving forward.
Thanks, Charlie. Other questions or comments? I'm sorry.
Just to address one, we are having a parent program on October 18th, I believe the date is. I will send something out to the community on the topic of HIB. We're bringing in an individual from Legal One who works with schools, and one of the topics they discuss is HIB. It'll be an evening.
Sorry about that. Other questions or comments?
Hi, Harris Turan. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but just a little bit on the HIB. I would just also ask you to consider, when you're discussing with the public, that, you know, in the cases where an HIB isn't affirmed for legal reasons, that there are still remedies that the school can take that we maybe not have always seen in the past, where you say there's a code of conduct issue, a school code of conduct issue, which might have been broken where the HIB has not been fully legally fulfilled. So that we might also work on, and I believe Ms. Ginsburg, you spoke at the last meeting or 2 meetings ago about restorative justice, and that you do a lot of work to make sure that the perpetrator in that case, they work with that, but we can also work a lot on the victim side and help them out a lot more through code of conduct issues and other issues. It's not just an HIB issue. If the HIB is not affirmed, well, there are other issues that they broke conduct issues in the school that the school can do, and not just say, hey, they didn't break an HIB, our hands are done, we're gone. Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Okay, that being the case, may I have a motion to adjourn?